After countless battles and repeated failures, the heroes' party finally arrives at the gates of the Demon Lord's castle once again. Everyone knows this battle could determine the fate of humanity, and there may never be another chance to defeat the Demon Lord. Leading the group is the legendary hero Yuga, accompanied by the mage Makana, the knight Raven, and the priestess Cecilia. Having studied the Demon Lord's army and learned from every previous defeat, they believe this will finally be the battle. That changes everything. Makana encourages Yuga, telling him she believes he can lead THM to victory, and the hero vows that they will defeat the Demon Lord together. As the massive castle doors slowly open, the four companions rush inside without hesitation, ready to fight whatever awaits them. Their advance is suddenly stopped by one of the Demon Lord's strongest generals, a calm and mysterious warrior named Yoki. Yoki says he already knows why they've come, but before he can finish speaking, Makano launches a powerful fireball straight at him. The explosion fills the hallway with flames, yet when the smoke clears, Yoki is standing exactly where he was without a single scratch. He mocks the spell and questions whether this is truly the full strength of the famous hero's party. Determined to prove him wrong, Raven rushes forward and unleashes a series of sword strikes.
Black. Once they're all unconscious, Yoki decides to approach them, but as he's using his magic on them, he's instantly entranced by the priestess's beauty. Cecilia lays unconscious at his feet, and Yoki immediately knows that he hit a jackpot, finding someone so beautiful. The moment gets interrupted when Yoki's subordinates suddenly show up, wondering if they should finish them off. Yoki gets startled and nervously reminds them that he told them to stay hidden, but Duke, a headless knight, tells him that they just came out after everything went silent. A kid named Seek mentions the fact that he was gawking at that girl, and asks him if something's wrong with him. The girl, named Happiness, simply assumes the worst and calls him a pervert, but Yoki quickly asks them to shut up and explains that he was just thinking what to do with the hero's party. Duke doesn't understand his hesitation because he thought it was obvious that they have to kill them. Yoki declines that idea and orders them to just throw them outside because there's a human village not far from the castle. Duke follows his orders without questioning him, though Happiness sees it as a hassle, but she complies either way. Seek also follows his command, but he warns him that he'll get written up again if they do this. Yoki stands his ground and makes them hurry, but deep down, he's secretly sad that he has to say goodbye to his angel, Cecilia. 1 month later, Yoki is summoned by the Demon Lord, and his servant Zaekil mentions that those heroes never learn their lesson and keep on challenging him, each ending with their defeat. He asks him how many times it has been now, and Yoki informs him that it has been 13 times to be exact. Zaekil is seemingly impressed that someone like him could knock them out every time, but it makes him think that those heroes are really nothing to be scared about. All the demons around laugh smugly, but that's when the Demon Lord finally speaks, asking Yoki why he hasn't killed the heroes already. Yoki hesitates and explains that a bunch of rascals like them are not even worth killing. The Demon Lord then tells him that if he's not killing them, then he will leave the job to his subordinates. Yoki instantly knows that his subordinates won't stand a chance against the heroes, and that's why he tells the Demon Lord that he'll do it himself. The Demon Lord seems satisfied, so he finally lets him go, and while Yoki walks away, he wonders what to do. After all, if he spares the heroes again next time, their lives will be in danger. Yoki is just way too overpowered himself, but those heroes actually have the power to defeat the Demon Lord. Besides, at this rate, the world is going to be under the Demon Lord's control, so he knows that he has to settle it next time for sure. The day the hero's party returns to fight, Yuga tells him that he'll absolutely bring him down this time. Raven supports him, and they both attack Yoki at the same time, but their attacks are still simply useless. Yoki counters with a powerful attack, crushing them against the wall, so Cecilia quickly runs to heal them. Meanwhile, Makana tries to keep him busy and casts multiple fireballs, trying to throw him off with a big explosion at the end. This leaves her clearly exhausted, and when she sees that Yoki is completely unharmed, she starts thinking that he's a monster. Yoki doesn't even look at her and focuses on Cecilia, who's trying to help her friends. The sight makes him smile genuinely, but he covers it with an evil laugh and tells them that fighting him is futile because they'll just get engulfed by the jet black darkness again. Despite his words, Cecilia supports the hero with her magic again, and Yuga raises his holy sword, Excalibur, one more time. All his efforts end up being useless against Yoki, who tells them that they can't win against him. Yuga quickly backs off, but he stands firm and says that they have to bring down the Demon Lord at all costs. Surprisingly, Yoki decides to give them a chance, saying that if they leave the priestess here, then he'll let the rest of them pass. The sudden proposal shocks them, and Yuga immediately refuses, but Makana stops him and tries to make him change his mind, saying that they should accept the deal because they don't stand a chance against Yoki. Yuga stubbornly refuses to leave Cecilia behind, but Makana asks him to think about it, saying that Yoki had every chance to kill them, but he never did. Yuga tells her that that doesn't mean they can get away without a scratch this time too. Makana hesitates, but she gives him no choice, saying that it's either one priestess or the salvation of the world. world. Yuga is clearly conflicted, but Cecilia decides to give the final answer, asking them to go ahead. Everyone is shocked at her resolution, but Cecilia stands firm and tells them that she'll be fine. Yuga chooses to trust her, saying that they'll come pick her up right after they defeat the Demon Lord. Just as he promised, Yoki opens the door for them, so the heroes' party quickly go to defeat the Demon Lord, promising to come back for her. Once they're finally alone, Cecilia asks him why he made her stay, but Yoki nervously hesitates. Knowing that her power can't even put a dent on him, she still decides to fight until the end and attacks with a holy laser. Yoki is taken by surprise, so he tries to ask for a timeout, saying that he wants her to hear him out. He nervously introduces himself, though Cecilia asks him why he would say that to someone he's about to kill. Yoki clarifies that if he wanted to kill her, he would have done so right from the get-go. Cecilia patiently waits to hear the real reason then, and that's when Yoki finally decides to confess, saying that he fell in love with her at first sight. He gathers the courage to ask her out, completely taking her off guard. Cecilia can't hold back the scream that comes out of her throat, unable to hide how flustered and surprised she is. Once she processes his confession, she decides to politely reject him, breaking his heart on the spot. Yoki instantly shrinks, feeling that everything is hopeless now, so he should just put an end to his life. Cecilia can't hide her genuine concern, but she quickly stands on guard, saying that he's not fooling her by pretending to be wide open. However, when she's about to attack, the fact that he isn't resisting at all confuses her. Yoki explains that he's been rejected by her, so he no longer has regrets. Cecilia falters when she realizes that he's being serious, and Yoki tells her that even if he's alive, all he can do is stay in this room. He's only allowed to go outside to attack human villages and towns, but he doesn't want to do that. Cecilia calls him a liar because all demons are cruel, and even the Demon Lord is trying to destroy humanity. Yoki understands her logic, so he decides to confess the truth, saying that even though he looks like a demon, he was actually reincarnated from another world, which means he's human inside. Cecilia asks him why he's serving the Demon Lord then, because with his power, he could even defeat him himself. Yoki recognizes that's true, but he explains that if he does that, he'll surely be appointed as the next Demon Lord, and he doesn't want that. As a result, he just stayed cooped up, unable to do anything every single day. He thought he'd put an end to such a pathetic life, but that's when she showed up, and it was love at first sight. This past month, while it was for a short time, he felt alive for the first time as a demon, so he doesn't care anymore. Cecilia tells him that he should care because he has power, and if he says that he has a human heart inside, then he should wield that power for humanity. She suddenly lets go of her staff, saying that it's still not too late now. Cecilia then offers him her hand, inviting him to go to the outside world with her. Yoki's face instantly lights up in surprise, and he finally makes a decision. Later, in the Kingdom of Clarinus, people celebrate the heroes' party for defeating the Demon Lord and coming back alive. The King of Clarinus, Darts Orda Clarinus, hereby declares that today marks the beginning of a 3-day period designated as their nation's Victory Day. While everyone celebrates, Yoki approaches the royal capital, the place where Cecilia lives. Without hesitation, he breaks the horn on his forehead with his own hand, though it hurts way more than he expected. The heroes' party is celebrated by everyone, and Yuga says that it's a good thing that they got to save the world, and it's all thanks to Cecilia. Makana can't hide her disappointment when she sees that all his attention and recognition goes to Cecilia, but she decides not to say anything. Meanwhile, now that he got rid of the only thing that gave him away as a demon, Yoki decides to go to the Adventurers Guild to register as a member. The man at the reception desk takes a moment to think, trying to remember what the procedure was. Yoki even wonders if this guy knows his job, but the man finally finds what he was looking for and asks him to fill in the form with his information. He explains that it's a liability waiver form for when he dies on the job. Yoki fills in the form with his name and age, saying that he's 21 years old. Once this is done, the receptionist gives him his guild card and informs him that he'll start at F rank and it goes all the way up to S. He must complete commissions to build his rep and go to the next rank, though it takes most people about a month to go from F to E. The receptionist also warns him that it's a pain to reissue the card so he can't lose it, especially in the next 3 days. The other employees are taking a leave for the festival, so he doesn't want to have to deal with administration. Yoki is only wondering how much of a slacker he is, but the man interrupts him and introduces himself as Clayman. That night, Yoki stays at an inn to count his money and realizes that he's earned a lot on his first day as an adventurer, so he should increase his rank and grind for more cash. That way, once he has a stable life, he'll just confess to Cecilia again. In just a few days, rumors of a guy ranking up crazy fast spread in the guild, and most people are talking about it. Yoki enters the guild and tells Clayman that he's taking some commissions, but Clayman doesn't understand why he's always coming to him, especially now, since there's a beautiful lady right next to him also working at reception. It's clear he just wants to slack off, but Yoki simply explains that he's grown attached to him, and he also works surprisingly fast. Clayman dismisses that excuse and asks him who he is, because someone who's ranked up from F to D in a mere week can't be just a novice adventurer. Yoki gets clearly nervous, wondering if he messed up by working too hard. Fortunately, Clayman decides not to question him any further, because it's not like he's doing anything illegal even if they investigate him. Yoki sighs in relief, and Clayman starts complaining as usual, saying that the front desk isn't his job. Before he can finish, a girl suddenly walks up to him and asks him to cancel those commissions. Yoki is surprised to see that it's actually Cecilia, Cecilia, and she asks Clayman to keep her identity a secret for now. Clayman leaves without questioning her, and Cecilia tells Yoki that they need to talk, so she wants him to go to her house. Without understanding a thing, Yoki follows her until they reach a huge mansion. Once they're finally inside, Cecilia apologizes to him, saying that she meant to see him earlier. Yoki asks her not to worry about that, and tells her that he was actually having fun being an adventurer. He also mentions that he's surprised she could find him there, but Cecilia explains that he's become the talk of the town. People said a novice adventurer ranked up to D in a flash, so it wasn't hard to figure out it was him. Cecilia tells him that while it's good that she's finally found him, she must ask him to quit the Adventurers Guild. This request takes Yoki by surprise, so she explains that the hero defeated the Demon Lord, but it's not like all the threats in the world are gone. The Demon Lord's death doesn't mean the death of all demons and monsters, but the human nations may start a struggle for supremacy now, and the signs are already showing up. The hero has received piles of engagement offers from various nations, and it's not just because he's popular or good-looking. Many nations use every means at their disposal to gather military strength and manpower, so they're trying to make him a pawn of war. Cecilia tells Yoki that he has ranked up at a pace unbelievable to normal people, and with that strength, he'll surely be one of the handful S-rank adventurers in the nation. However, once he does, all eyes will be on him, and if he gets scouted and suddenly reveals his demon power, he might be used as a tool by the nation to conquer the world, or they'd antagonize him. Yoki quickly understands the problem here, knowing that his second life would be done for if that happens. Cecilia tells him that she'd like for him to not be too conspicuous for the time being. Yoki seems conflicted because he has bills to pay, and that's when Cecilia tells him that she could just hire him personally and pay him for his trouble. Unfortunately, she explains that she doesn't have enough assets to hire an S-rank, but in exchange, she'll do anything she can. That's why, for the peace of this nation, she asks him to listen to her. Yoki is taken by surprise when Cecilia bows her head to him, so he immediately stands up and raises his voice, asking her to never do such a thing again. He tells her that the idea of him taking up on the scout offer from another country is simply hilarious, because even if a beautiful lady proposes to him, it would still be out of the question, and the only reason is that she's the only one in his eyes right now. Cecilia is stunned into silence for a moment, but she then can't hold her laugh any longer. Yoki gets a little nervous, realizing that his old habit from the past life took over him. Cecilia apologizes, saying that it looks like she was worried for nothing, so he can continue being an adventurer. Yoki tells her that he will still try his best not to stand out, and just then someone knocks on the door, asking Cecilia if she has a minute. Moments later, Yoki meets Cecilia's mother, Celia Aquarain, and he clearly can't hide his nervousness. Celia politely apologizes for her gatekeeper's rude behavior earlier, since they thought he was an intruder as soon as they saw him. Yoki quickly reassures her, saying that it's nothing that warrants a formal apology. Celia is glad to hear that, and tells him that he can rest assured because Sophia, the head maid, will discipline them hard. Yoki still thinks that gatekeeper won't learn his lesson just through a maid's scolding, but that's when Sophia asks Celia how many of his bones she should leave intact. Celia simply leaves it to her, and then decides to get to the point, so the head maid excuses herself and leaves them alone. Once she's gone, Celia asks her daughter if she has told him already, but Cecilia nervously says that it's not necessary. Yoki clearly doesn't know what they're talking about, so Celia informs him that Cecilia has received many engagement offers, and one even came from the hero. Yoki instantly freaks out, and Cecilia tries to stop her mother from speaking, but Celia mentions that the hero really has a thing for her daughter. In no time, Yoki loses his cool, asking what's wrong with the hero, because he's sure even a princess would go for him too. He's just way too popular, so he wants him to stay away from his romantic life. Cecilia asks him to calm down, and clarifies that she turned down all the offers, not just the heroes. Yoki instantly cheers up, and Cecilia asks her mother not to bring up such a weird topic. Celia simply smiles, because seeing Yoki's reaction is enough to let her know that he also likes her daughter. Yoki doesn't deny it, so Celia goes straight to the point and asks him if he'd like to marry Cecilia. This clearly makes him nervous, but Yoki keeps his composure and apologizes, explaining that he confessed to her once and got rejected. That's why he wants to do his best as an adventurer, and once he gets a stable life, he'll confess his love to her again. Celia simply assumes that he's refusing her advice as her mother, so Yoki apologizes for offending her, but explains that he wants to respect Cecilia's feelings. Celia suddenly tells him that he passed, and Yoki understands that it was a test. She explains that doesn't want her to keep bad company, because she'd never hand over her precious daughter to anyone. Now that she has confirmed that he's a good guy, Celia decides to leave, saying that he's welcome in this house. Yoki nervously thanks her, and once he's alone with Cecilia, he asks her to let him call her by her name. Cecilia gladly accepts, and decides to call him by his name from now on as well, which makes him immensely happy. Sometime after that, Yoki defeats a cockatrice in the forest with a thunderbolt, and collects the feathers for a request from the guild. Clayman said that this mission would take at least a week, but it ended up being an easy day trip for him. Just when Yoki thinks that he's done for the day, he gets ambushed by his former subordinates. None of them recognize him now, until Yoki lets them know it's him, and Sheik stops mid-attack. He's clearly relieved to see their captain is alright, and admits that he thought that he was just an adventurer out hunting demons. Yoki is glad to see they're okay as well, but Duke doesn't hesitate to scold him, asking him where he's been all this time. After all, he just vanished on them, and the Demon King was defeated, so it's just natural that they were worried. Yoki tries to explain himself, but Duke continues interrupting him, mentioning the fact that he looks like a human now, since he doesn't have his horn and wings. Yoki asks him to calm down for once, but Sheik laughs and explains that Duke's been super worried since he disappeared. Happiness asks him to explain himself, so Yoki tells them that he confessed his love to the priestess of the hero's party and got rejected, so he's now living as a human adventurer. Without letting them process the information, Yoki tells them that he's living as Yoki the human now, so they should live as they please too. His offer gets instantly rejected by the three, and they make him know that they prefer sticking with him. Duke mentions that they also want to meet the human he fell for anyway, so they'll follow him for now. Yoki tries to warn them that that will never work, because this is the human world, which means they would have to hide their true forms. Despite his warning, the three of them insist, saying that if he can hide his true form, then so can they. Having no other choice, Yoki accepts, but he asks them to prepare for what's coming. However, when he finally takes them to Cecilia's house, she's not happy at all to see what he did to Happiness, who doesn't have her wings anymore. Cecilia asks him how he could do such a thing to a girl, even if it's to give her a human disguise. Yoki recognizes that taking a harpy's wings away is awful, so he apologizes for what he did. Cecilia asks him to think about what he's done, and Happiness mentions that she's a nice girl. Both Duke and Sheik are also impressed by how nice Cecilia is, and soon enough, they sit to have some tea in a more civil way. They tell Cecilia that they're Yoki's former subordinates, but she mentions that they don't look like demons. Duke informs her that he's a Dullahan, Happiness is a harpy, and Sheik is a pixie. He tells her that he would take his head off and show her, but his armor and helmet are fused together. Yoki intervenes and tells Duke that he's being too chatty for a Dullahan when he barely spoke at all before. Duke informs him that that's because of him, and explains that at first he actually hated the captain. After all, Yoki was famous for being a shut-in even when his superior officer Zaykil ordered him to go out and kill humans. Zaykil said that talking to Yoki was exhausting, so he just left him to his own devices after that. Duke mentions that that's unacceptable for a demon, so he tried to correct the captain by force. However, he turned the tables on him, gave him all of these ideas, and that made him who he is today. Cecilia mentions that he seems to care deeply for Yoki now, and Duke doesn't deny that. He also says that Happiness and Sheik are the same, but just then, he realizes none of them are around anymore. Yoki immediately gets worried, because they'll be in trouble if anyone other than Cecilia sees them around the mansion and finds out what they are. After looking around for a while, Yoki is surprised to find Sheik peacefully sleeping on Celia's lap. Yoki nervously explains that Sheik is his friend and apologizes for the trouble he caused. Celia dismisses it and tells him that she loves children, so she doesn't mind at all. She explains that Sheik was running around in the garden earlier, so she joined him, but he wore himself out and fell asleep. Cecilia asks her mother if she saw a girl with Sheik, since they still haven't found Happiness. Celia mentions that she did see a girl, but Sophia took her to the house. The three of them immediately get alarmed, so they run into the mansion to find Happiness. Sophia greets them and introduces Happiness as the new maid, leaving them very confused. Happiness greets them, already used to the job, but Yoki asks her why she's a maid all of a sudden. Cecilia explains that Happiness is Yoki's friend, so Sophia apologizes, explaining that she assumed she was a new hire who started today. Yoki apologizes for the confusion and asks Happiness to go on and get changed already. However, Happiness refuses, saying that she actually wants to work as a maid now. Just like the others, Sophia is also surprised to hear that, but she smiles and mentions that she hasn't been shown to the servants' quarters yet. Happiness smiles, glad to know that she can stay, so the others decide to say goodbye at the end of the day and wish her the best. Duke asks her to do her best, and Sheik tells her that she's lucky, since she gets to live in this big mansion. Celia asks them to come visit them again anytime, but before they can leave, she discreetly approaches Yoki to give him some information. She mentions that, in addition to her work as a priestess, Cecilia is involved with some very important people, being in the hero's party, and hasn't had much rest of late. Cecilia explains that she's going to make sure she has the day off tomorrow, so she'd like him to take her out to have some fun. Yoki wasn't expecting a request like that, but sure enough, he's already waiting for Cecilia the next day to go out with her. He's clearly a little nervous, because he knows that this is basically a parent-approved date. When Cecilia finally arrives, Yoki is instantly blown away by her casual outfit and beautiful appearance. She's wearing different clothes than usual, and he can't stop thinking about how great it looks. Cecilia notices that he's not saying anything, so Yoki quickly compliments her glasses. She explains that it's a disguise, because if she's recognized as a member of the hero's party, things will get hectic. Yoki easily understands, saying that it must be tough to be famous, and Cecilia simply apologizes for making him go along with this. Yoki quickly dismisses it and tells her that he'll work with her to make today a nice day off. Cecilia smiles, saying that she'll get her hopes up in that case. They both walk through the city, and the first thing she notices is that they have a new cake at the bakery. Cecilia takes a look through the window, seeing the many cute cakes on display, and asks Yoki to stop here for tea later. Yoki agrees, and they continue walking through the city, enjoying their time together. Cecilia enjoys looking at the flowers and some cats, but Yoki firmly thinks that she's the only cute thing in his eyes. She also decides to try on some clothes at a shop, and Yoki doesn't hesitate to compliment her. They continue their walk after that, and Cecilia tells him that thanks to him, she feels like her day-to-day exhaustion is melting away. Yoki sees that as an accomplishment, and when he sees a jewelry store, he invites her in to go see some accessories. Cecilia happily agrees, but her voice gets instantly recognized by Yuga, who's also in a disguise next to Makana. He carelessly tries to call for her name, but Makana immediately stops him, saying that everyone will know who she is if he yells out her name like that. Yuga apologizes for that and decides to walk up to Cecilia to greet her, asking her what brings her here. He explains that they took a day off for the first time in ages to go out and have fun, so he'd love for her to join them. Yoki simply stands aside, wondering if he can't really see him. Cecilia quickly apologizes and explains that she's with a friend today, so Yuga finally recognizes Yoki's presence. He immediately leans closer to see his face, wondering if they have met somewhere before. Yoki gets a little nervous and tells him that it must be his imagination, and Cecilia completely agrees, not wanting Yuga to find out who Yoki truly is. Yuga easily leaves that aside and tells her that he can go with them in that case, and without letting her reply, he drags her into the jewelry store. Before they can protest, both Yoki and Makana are left out, and she complains about her first date with Yuga in ages getting ruined like that. She refers to Yoki as a civilian with a dull face, and tells him that she hopes things work out for him and the priestess. After all, if it works out between them, maybe Yuga will give up on Cecilia, and she'll finally have a chance. Yoki starts thinking that she's actually an okay person, but he instantly changes his mind when Makana tells him that she wouldn't expect too much with a dull face like his. When she goes into the store, Yoki observes Yuga and remembers the fact that Cecilia turned down the hero's marriage proposal, but he's apparently still interested in her. Still, he can't lose to the hero just because he's a pretty boy, so Yoki refuses to give up and enters the store. He approaches Cecilia and asks her if she's found an accessory she likes. Cecilia is happy to see him again and apologizes for leaving him out there, but Yoki dismisses it and tells her that he'll buy her a gift since they're here. That takes her by surprise, so Yoki reassures her and explains that it's to thank her for last time. Cecilia smiles and decides to take him up on that, but Yuga is not happy about their little interaction, so he quickly gets in the way and says that he'll pick something out for Makana and Cecilia too. Yoki wonders if he's trying to compete with him, but he doesn't see it as a threat and notices a cute necklace with a blue gem. He grabs the necklace and tells Cecilia that it would look good on her, and she seemingly agrees, getting a little flustered. Cecilia tells him that it's wonderful, but just then, Yuga shows up with a huge hair accessory he picked out for her. Makana is not impressed at all, but Yuga is completely confident, and he proudly tells Cecilia that it's the most expensive thing in the store. Yoki is also not impressed, since more expensive doesn't always mean better, especially in this case. Ignoring all sense of reason, Yuga carelessly takes off Cecilia's hat to put the accessory on her hair. As soon as he takes off her disguise, people in the store immediately start recognizing her, and they also recognize Yuga and Makana. In a matter of seconds, they're all surrounded by civilians, and Cecilia says that it's time to get out of the store. The fierce crowd takes them all away, leaving Yoki behind, since nobody knows who he is. Yoki starts running through the city, knowing that he has to find Cecilia as soon as possible. Soon enough, he finds another crowd, but this one is surrounding Raven, the hero's party's knight. Yoki doesn't remember him that well, but he feels like he has seen that good-looking guy before. A man next to him informs him that he's the former swordsman of the hero's party, who was promoted to knight captain. Yoki finally remembers him as the silent swordsman who fought alongside the hero back then. It looks like he's struggling right now too, so he decides to help him out and yells that he saw the hero in the opposite direction. The crowd instantly runs away to look for the hero, finally leaving Raven alone. Yoki takes the chance to run and takes Raven with him to an empty alley, knowing that they can't be found there. Raven nervously searches for something in his pockets, and Yoki assumes that he won't get a word of thanks from him, so he decides to leave and advises him to wear a disguise next time he's walking around. Raven quickly stops him before he can leave, and Yoki is surprised to hear his voice for the first time, since it sounds way more feminine than he expected. He finally understands that's why he can't talk around people, and Raven asks him if he's not going to make fun of him, because he knows that he doesn't sound very manly. Yoki smiles and tells him that everyone has a part of them that they don't want people pointing out. Raven tells him that he's an unusual guy, because most people laugh at him when they hear his voice. Yoki assures him that he's not going to laugh, and once again, he tries to leave. However, Raven stops him a second time, and nervously asks him if he would like to be his friend. That clearly takes Yoki off guard, so Raven quickly explains that the only people who didn't laugh at his voice were his mother and cousin. Yoki smiles and gladly accepts, so Raven finally introduces himself and shakes his hand. Just then, Yoki remembers what he was doing before, and tells him that he doesn't have time to hang around here, so he really has to leave now. Raven doesn't stop him this time, so Yoki starts searching for Cecilia in the city, since he doesn't want their first date to end like this. Cecilia is also searching for him, but she finds a little kid crying alone and decides to help him out by using her healing magic on his injured knee. Even after this, the kid continues crying loudly because his mother is not around. That's when Yoki shows up, and with his dramatic antics, he tells the kid that he'll search high and low until he finds his mother. The kid finally stops crying, not knowing how to react, but Cecilia quickly scolds Yoki and asks him what he's doing. Yoki nervously clarifies that he's not a chunny or anything, but it's just something he does for kids. The kid suddenly starts laughing while pointing at him, saying that he got in trouble. Both Yoki and Cecilia are glad that the kid isn't crying anymore. At least, so they start searching for his mother through the city. In the meantime, Yuga is still searching for Cecilia, and he's dragging Makana around all the time as he does. Makana tries to convince him to go home already because it will be chaos if they get caught again. She tells him that the priestess is probably back home by now anyway, but Yuga gets a little frustrated by her insistence and tells her that he's worried about Cecilia, unlike her. He quickly lets go of her hand and runs, wanting to find Cecilia. Makana simply wonders what's wrong with him, and soon enough, Yuga finally finds Cecilia and Yoki, who manage to find the kid's mother. However, when he turns around to tell Makana that he found her, she's already gone. The next day, Celia informs Yoki that Cecilia collapsed and explains that on top of the exhaustion she deals with every day, it seems the commotion yesterday pushed her over her limit. Yoki instantly feels guilty, but Celia reassures him and says that Cecilia only has a mild cold, and it's not his fault at all. On the other hand, after the hero dragged Cecilia into all that chaos, he insisted on taking care of her, and she doesn't even know how he found out. Yoki is somehow not surprised, and Celia tells him that Sophia intercepted Yuga and managed to send him away. Sophia confirms this, saying that they can't have him making a fuss around Cecilia. Yoki only wonders what Sophia is exactly, but he doesn't dare to make a comment about it. Celia smiles and tells him that Cecilia told her how much he did for her, so he can go see her if he wants. Sophia guides him through the mansion until they reach Cecilia's bedroom, and it's clear that she wasn't expecting any visits. Cecilia gets extremely nervous and asks them to wait, but Sophia reassures her and tells her that she already put her teddy bear away. That makes Cecilia feel even more embarrassed, but Sophia ignores it and asks Yoki to come in. Yoki enters Cecilia's room for the first time and takes a seat on the stool next to her bed. He apologizes for what happened, but she tells him that it wasn't his fault. Yoki insists and explains that he knew that she was exhausted, so he was wrong to drag her all over the place like that. Cecilia smiles and decides to play along, saying that it was his fault in that case. And since her day off went to waste because of him, she wants him to go out with her on her next day off. Yoki is taken by surprise, but he immediately gets excited because that's clearly a promise to go on another date. His dramatic side comes out again as he tells her that he won't fail her again, so she can indulge in all the rest she needs while letting her hopes swell for their next outing. He finishes his sentence with an evil laugh, and Cecilia can't help but to laugh with him. However, as soon as she starts coughing, Sophia doesn't hesitate to kick him out. As Yoki walks away from the mansion, he suddenly runs into Raven, who nervously asks him for advice because there's someone he's interested in. There's a girl who didn't make fun of him for his voice, and she even complimented it, saying that she envied him. Yoki quickly understands that's why he fell for her, so he decides to give him some confidence, reminding him who he is and how nice he looks. He assures him that if that girl complimented his voice, then he has nothing to worry about, so he should totally make a move. Yoki realizes way too late that his Chuni side slipped out again, but that fortunately seemed to work out. Raven takes off his disguise and thanks him for the advice, since he helped him find his courage, and he'll tell that girl how he feels. After he leaves, Yoki starts wondering why Raven is walking towards the mansion, and just then, he realizes that he probably was talking about Cecilia.